And today we have in studio Congresswoman Jen Kerry. We love to have you here. You smile. You know, you come in, you smile. Everything just like everybody feels good. You just, you lift up the room, and we so greatly appreciate having you here. But bring us up to date. I mean, it's raucous what's going on up there.
Right. I'm just happy to be home. So it's
quiet.
Good to be back. Wish the sun would come out, but besides that, it's great just to be back. We had a busy week up there. This was supposed to be a district work week for us, but as you know, they called us back up there to finalize and to vote on the debt ceiling bill, which we did on Wednesday. And I voted yes. So this was a step in the right direction for us. It was the right thing to do. You know, we have two choices when we vote up there. We've got yes or no. So the no vote wasn't an option for me, at least. I mean, the consequences of voting no and defaulting on our debt and turning an already disastrous economy into a bigger disaster, that wasn't what I was willing to do. So the yes vote, and that's why I wanted to come today to kind of clarify about what a win this is for conservatives and how Republicans, we've really been winning for over 100 days now. I mean, ever since we've taken office, we have been winning one day at a time, one step at a time. And this bill is just another step in that process. But a lot of wins in this bill, and we'd love to talk about each and every one of them because it's a great bill.
Absolutely. The floor is yours. I could say this, the Wall Street Journal, conservative outlets have said, listen, this is a start. It's what you get in divided government. The work requirements, a lot of good starting points for this. So certainly, weigh in. I know that it was a difficult situation going early on. There was a lot of people in the Freedom Caucus and stuff that were saying, no. But I think you've got some excellent reasons why, wait a minute, let's be pragmatic.
Right. And, we passed the Limit, Save, and Grow Act a couple weeks ago, and that was really a conservative wish list for us. This was everything that we wanted. The sky was the limit, right?
Right.
And that was what President Biden had said. Well, Republicans need to offer a plan. So we did just that. We provided everything we wanted in a perfect bill, and that bill passed overwhelmingly with just Republican support. So, people need to understand we knew that was a starting point, right? We knew that was the tool that we needed. We had to pass that to get President Biden to the negotiating table. What's really important to know is that he demanded, and Chuck Schumer and everyone on that side of the aisle, that we have a clean debt ceiling increase. That was what they wanted. They were not willing to negotiate. They said this time and time again all over the media. If you go back and watch their interviews, they say, we want a debt ceiling increase and that's it. We are not going to negotiate anything else. Well, when we passed that Limit, Save, and Grow Act, it got them to the table because they realized that 1/3 of government, which is what the Republicans control right now, disagreed with that. And so we got them to the table by passing Limit, Save, and Grow. Now, when we did that in the first couple meetings that Speaker McCarthy went in there and had with President Biden, well, first of all, the stories of President Biden not answering questions if it wasn't on the card. I mean, Schumer tries to speak for him, and it's sad to listen to how that negotiating actually goes down. But then they started to ask for increase in taxes. If we're going to do this, we negotiate with you all, we want to raise taxes. And Speaker McCarthy said, no, there's two things we're not doing. We're not raising taxes, and we're not giving you a clean debt ceiling increase. Bottom line, period. We're starting from there. So, and then we saw that progress, and we saw, they had to take a break a day or two during negotiations. They would come back to the table, and they knew that we had boxed them in a corner. They had to negotiate with us. So what came out of that meeting was a compromise, right? We know that when you negotiate, both sides come to the table. We have a divided government, and this is just the reality of a divided government, that we have to compromise. That means both sides give a little. So we took that perfect wish list that we had, which was Limit, Save, and Grow, and we worked from there. It was a starting point, but we knew that we both had to give. So when you look at what came out of the Fiscal Responsibility Act that we voted for on Wednesday, I mean, what great things we got, in my opinion. We reduced the spending level, first and foremost. We reduced it by $2 trillion. We're spending less next year than we spent this year. That never happens in Congress. That hasn't happened for decades up there. So this was a great victory for us. Now, we were not willing to compromise on things like veteran spending, things like Social Security and Medicare, things like defense. Those were where we we drew a red line and we said we are not cutting from there.
Well,
so we looked at other places to cut.
I think it's correct. It was pointed out by some commentators that, roughly 75% of this is mandatory spending that kind of has to be spent anyway. So, the argument was over a smaller piece of the total pie, and still you were able to get concessions on that smaller piece.
Yeah, non-defense discretionary spending was what we are cutting. So some things that are in that bill, that recouping that COVID money, it's about $29 billion that we will be getting back. This is unspent COVID money.
Right.
The work requirement that you talked about, that's for SNAP and TANF benefits. So increases just the age. So people that were age 50 and it went up to age 50 and we increased it to age 54 that you have to be working. And so, and I'm 52. I think I'm still pretty young and old enough, obviously, to be working.
You're just a baby.
Just a baby. So that was kind of a no-brainer for us. We put a pay-as-you-go requirement in there. So we saw President Biden enact executive orders that would spend billions of dollars, right, when he first came to office. So this requirement now makes it so that if a president is going to enact an executive order, he has to be able to find that money somewhere else. You got to cut it from somewhere else if you're going to spend it over here. So that was a great requirement. And then we also put in some permitting restrictions for. We've seen NEPA and some of these environmental burdens that we've placed on projects. The timeline is taking 5-6 years to get permitting done for things that we need. I mean, I think of places like the port and things like road improvements, and there's a lot of projects that are going on that you need to get those just environmental regulations through. So this requirement makes puts a timeline in place for 1 to 2 years. So those things have to be looked at. They have to be, decided on so that we can get that project done.
And there's another benefit to this, Congresswoman Kiggans, that now investors know that they're not investing into a black hole, that if there's a finite timeline on projects related to energy,
right,
that green lights investment. So they know there would be a return. And that's important. See, that's something that people miss, is that the fossil fuel economy just got a boost.
Right. And they've been dragging their feet on this stuff for way too
purposefully,
long. So,
and it, much to the detriment of the economic numbers and inflation.
Very much so. So those were great wins. We did reduce a smaller part of the IRS agent money. They will not be able to hire IRS agents this year. We shuffled some money around so that going forward, hopefully they won't be able to do that. It wasn't as much as we wanted, but again, compromise. It wasn't as much as I wanted for things like defense. The president, and what it does is it meets the president's budget, and he had asked for a 3% increase in our defense spending, and inflation is closer to 6%. So in my mind, that's still a 3% cut. So I would have liked to have seen that increased. We live in a very dangerous world right now. We are all very focused, especially on Armed Services Committee, with the threat of China and the threat of Asia. I want to make sure our military men and women here especially have the resources they need to fight tonight. And we're looking at a lot of quality of life issues for our servicemen and women that I think have been neglected for the past probably decade or so. There's a lot of room for improvement, and that takes money, right, to fund those projects.
Sure.
So I wish that would have been a little higher, but we didn't. We gave the president what he wanted for defense spending. We have the Defense Authorization Act that we will be marking up towards the end of the month. So we're going to try to tweak it. And also, there is some room. I feel like there is some room that we can find. Where are we spending money? I want to make sure we're prioritizing warfighting in our defense budget. I want to make sure we're not prioritizing things that might be considered, wasteful or just not the right direction. I want to make sure that we're spending money where we need to be spending money. And that's what we'll do with this defense authorization markup. And veteran affairs spending as well. We gave the president what he wanted. So when you see some of these ads that are out there,
this last one, let me just comment. I'm looking at it, and there's some guy standing there with an Air Force cap. I knew somebody. I lived down the block from somebody whose stepson used to be in the Air Force, and I'm really concerned about this. It just rings so hollow.
Well,
explain. What are we talking about here?
They're trying. They want the seat back. Number one,
well,
right?
Yeah, they want
they want
still
the seat
upset
back. They're mad. We've stirred up the hornet's
Well,
nest.
with this kind of commercial, I mean, they're not even rational.
Well, I mean, it started.
I once knew a guy who was in the military, and let me tell you something, he's pissed. I mean,
Well, the shot over the bow was when President Biden showed up here in my district a couple months ago. Remember, and all the traffic came to a standstill. I'm sure everybody remembers that afternoon that the president showed up to say, that how bad Republicans were. But that was the shot over the bow. They are absolutely coming after the seat. We will be a top 5 race, if not a top 2 or 3 race again.
Man.
And so the amount of money you have seen, it's been about $600,000 that the DCCC has put towards television commercials that are flat out lies. There's no truth. We have had lawyers write letters to say, take those ads down. They are not true, which of course never happens, despite we did that during the campaign as well.
Explain why. I think it's important with this platform. What's the core canard that's being advanced by this dumb commercial?
That's all they have. They have, and they're attacking. It's ridiculous because they're attacking a person who was a veteran, who is married to a veteran, who is the daughter of a veteran. My dad served in Vietnam. I'm the granddaughter of a veteran from World War II. I am the mother of future veterans. My son just graduated from the Naval Academy last week.
You're not just a veteran. You flew helicopters, okay? I'm just a veteran. You're a real veteran. You flew helicopters.
It's just a ridiculous place to attack me. The thought that I would ever do anything or take any vote that would hurt any member of my military family is just ludicrous. So, but they're gonna go there. They're gonna go there just and listening to the commercials that Jen Kiggans voted to defund law enforcement, border patrol. No, I've literally been up there voting for things like the border bill and. Whereas we've watched the Democrats try to defund the police for several years now. So it's the more they tell lies about us, the more we will tell the truth about them. And that's what I wanted to do today is just, expose those lies. I know there's mail pieces out there that are saying the same thing, but just the amount of money that they are spending already when we are 18 months out from an election in 2024.
I thought it was a little early to start coming off with the nonsense.
Yeah.
I think recently there was a piece you had sponsored or had input into a mental health bill. We know some of our sailors that have, long-term duty in ships in the yard. There's a lot of stressors. But I think you understand those stressors.
Right.
You've been deployed.
We dropped that bill 2 weeks ago. It's the Sailors Standard of Care Act. And what that does, it came out the same week that the Navy report came out talking about the suicides on the George Washington and in Marmac. And we need to take a better look at that. The Navy pretty much came out and said we had failed our sailors, and that was hard to hear when we were presented the brief. But what my bill does is makes it a requirement, especially for those limited duty situations. We looked at Marmac specifically, and when sailors are taken out of their role, out of their mission, we want to make sure they have an initial mental health screening, and then they have a periodic one, so that we're kind of staying on top of that. We asked the Navy to provide a report on what the timeline is for how they're out processing sailors. We don't want these guys just sitting around and waiting. If they're going to be medically discharged, then let's do it expeditiously. Let's not have them sitting around. That's when we see problems, is when we're taking sailors out of their mission. We signed up to the Navy to be in the Navy to see the world, right? To defend the country, to be the tip of the spear. So when you take us out of that mission, it's hard, and then you introduce medical issues as well. So my bill looks at that. We created a quality of life dashboard, which is something that every command will be required to report on things like childcare availability, housing, healthcare, spouse employment. We're taking a big look at that overall from Congress on the Armed Services Committee. I'm on a quality of life task force, which will begin later this month, which will look specifically at those things. There's so much room for improvement, not just with mental health care, but things like infrastructure and housing.
Yes.
I go up there, and every time I open my mouth, I cannot say enough things about our infrastructure, what our bases look like these days, where we're asking our servicemen and women to live. We can do so much better than that. We are moving them into barracks that are not in the best shape. We're charging them for Wi-Fi. There's not a hotel in the country that does that. And you look at the colleges and universities and the amount of construction and the beautiful campuses and the dormitories that our college kids live in. And I was in college. I know what those kids do, most nights of the week. And then we look at, where we house our servicemen and women and what we ask them to do every night of the week. So there's a lot of room for improvement. That's the fight that I fight every day, and honored to be, in that fight and have a seat at that table.
Sure. Well, I think it's last night the Senate did pass the bill, which will avert, I presume, catastrophe. And I think it's important at this point, like you point out, that there is a starting point. And I think the way in which change is affected is to obtain power. And I think that even with the small, the small majority in the House, you've got a president in the White House who's, in my opinion, very disconnected, and then a Senate that has that slim majority of Democrats. It's very hard to get your full agenda through. Yeah. But, the Mountain Valley Pipeline, Manchin got what he wanted. I don't know if it's going to help him in his race, but it does help the economy.
We got to get the Senate and the White House back in 2024. I mean, that's if we want to enact real change. And until then, all we can do is these baby steps, and that's what this bill is. It was baby steps. The good news is that Congress didn't adjourn on Wednesday. We're still open for business, right? So we are going to continue to go up there and fight for what's best for the country and what's best for America. And I fight what's best for my district. That's what we do every day. And this bill was what's best for them. It reduces that top line spending number, which I've watched for years. I mean, we all have how much they've been spending, trillions of dollars. And they had one party rule, right? So they could get this done. They had no one to stop them. So for us to come in and be able not just to stop what they're doing, and think of what we have been stopping for over 100 days, but in addition to stopping things, we have been winning. We had the Parents' Bill of Rights that we passed. We had the border bill that we passed. We had H.R. 1, which is our energy bill. So we have been doing things and winning every single day. Our D.C. crime bill was actually signed into law by the president. So we've actually had some wins that even up as far as the White House. But we do what we can, again, with our controlling 1/2 of 1/3 of government. So people need to understand that. So whatever I can get a step in the right direction, I will absolutely be voting for.
I did not jump on the bandwagon. I know a lot of commentators did, and I know Kerry helped me understand it a little bit. That you do have to be pragmatic about it, and that there are some things in here that are very important as a first step. I do believe that I think Americans are starting to understand the value of work. The work requirements are not cruel. They bring people into the dignity of independence and understanding that there is a quid pro quo. And listen, Clinton started this. Biden voted for it. This is nothing new.
Right.
We're starting to see through all this politics. Last night the Senate, even though it'll be vetoed, struck down this loan forgiveness because it's just it doesn't sell well. When you sign the papers and you've got all this debt. And then, you want to turn around and have, somebody who maybe took an alternative career path and pay for your judgment. It doesn't resonate. A lot of this does not resonate with Americans. And you're starting to turn it around.
And you mentioned just the dignity of work, and that's a huge priority of mine. I mean, if I could have a T-shirt, I think it would say "Just work."
Just work.
Not only does that you can live out the American dream, you can provide for a better way of life from your family. It helps with your mental health. Having a reason to get up in the morning to go to work, to be productive in society. This is just a cornerstone of our country and what makes our country great. That we all have these opportunities. This is the land of opportunity. So we want people to take advantage of that. I know during COVID, we saw the Democrats incentivize staying home, right? So that's the battle we're fighting right now, is trying to get people back to work. I don't go to a single meeting with any business where they don't mention their challenges, their workforce challenges right now. Getting people to work in businesses, no matter what business it is hard across the board. So we're trying to find some incentives, and again, baby steps. I wish there was a little more work requirements in this bill, but increasing that age requirement was definitely a step in the right direction.
Well, and there's enough to protect those who cannot take care of themselves.
So
that's what they're not saying.
It excludes the homeless. It excludes veterans. It excludes foster children. So we are mindful of those things. We are trying to make very common sense decisions up there. I go up to Washington, D.C., and I try to use my background, as a Navy pilot, as a mom of 4, as a nurse practitioner, and I try to make very pragmatic, common sense decisions that are the best for the country. That's what I was elected to do. So I want people to vote for me because I'm a good decision maker. I think that's the most important thing. I speak for a conservative. I am a conservative through and through, but I also, in this limited majority that I have, what can I get done? And we have some great leaders up there in Washington, D.C. I can't say enough good things for, our leadership to work very hard. They admitted this wasn't the perfect bill. There are no perfect bills there. But this was about as good as it gets. And like I said, every day we'll go back and we'll continue to fight for more.
You represent a district that's widely diverse in political views.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important. You're a representative.
Right.
Somebody used the term govern. The result may be rules that ultimately are governance, but people in Congress are representatives. So
That's right.
when you take a pragmatic, common sense view, you're bringing in a lot of people under the tent.
Yes, and
that you represent. You don't govern them; you represent them.
100%. This is not about me. This is about representing my what I consider to be a purple district. We only won by just over 3% back in November, so I'm mindful of that. Across the country, there was only nine of us that flipped seats last year from Democrat to Republican to give us a very small. We had a 5-seat majority. We had someone just resigning. We now have a 4-seat majority in the U.S. House of Representatives, but that 4-seat majority allows us to balance power in Washington, D.C., and that is so important. And that's what people need to remember. We had to fight hard for this seat. I'm sure you were all watching.
I don't know what it's about us. I guess we're just so charming here. But the national Democrat money comes into this seat.
Yes, and it will come again. So it's just getting started.
And the Republicans need to understand that this is an important seat. Listen, McCarthy came here personally, did he not?
Yes, he did. Yes.
And this is something that people need to understand. This is an important seat. We have the military here. We have a tremendous economy here. People are watching, but you're doing a good job.
They'll keep watching. Yeah. Like I said, top tier seat. And you think it's bad now with the TV and the mail. And I got a billboard, which is the first time I've ever had an intact billboard. So that's something to see. But
I once knew a guy in the military a few years ago. I lived near him. Once we had a sandwich at the 7-Eleven. He told me he was pissed about something. Thank you for the commercial. I mean, come on.
Well, thankfully,
bring it.
I got thick skin by now, but it's
just ridiculous.
And I'm so focused on the mission, which is doing what's best for the country, getting the country on the right track. It's been going in the wrong direction for so many years. So that's why I got off my couch. That's why I ran for Congress. That's why I do this day in and day out. We have to do better for my country, for my kids, for our families, and we can do it, and we are doing it every day at a time. So it is a fight. I need people to know that the fight is very real. It's real.
Oh no, it's real.
That's what I tell people when I see them in the grocery stores. Just know that this is a real fight. We work hard every day for every inch that we can get back. And I'll continue to do that.
Come home and hydrate and get my strength back, and then go to D.C. But no, you're in there. They gave you've got some good committees. I mean, you went in there, you hit the ground running, and I think that that smile, that common sense, that pragmatism, that experience, I think is important for all of us. And I know that you'll continue to do good things for Hampton Roads. I really, I struggled over this in the beginning when I saw the bill, but then, and Kerry kind of enlightened me a little bit about it. No, wait a minute. I mean, we're dealing with a divided government. And, I think that ultimately we do have the starting point. Americans are starting to realize the electric economy is not going to be our salvation. Right. We need to understand that decades of fossil fuel reliance is important. We just can't simply turn around 180 degrees. We're going to need to be pragmatic. And somehow, Congresswoman, the extreme left has Biden's ear on this.
Yeah,
and he's going full bore on the Sanders agenda. And kudos to the even that slim majority in the House for pushing back.
Well, and they have been able to do that because we had no voice, no recourse to stop them. So I think that's the most important thing that our very small House majority does. But we say Rome wasn't built in a day; it wasn't destroyed in a day. And for Navy people in Congress, we've been saying you don't turn an aircraft carrier on a dime; you turn it 1 degree at a time, right? So nothing. Unfortunately, they've been able to make a lot of changes quickly, again with their supermajority. But since we have taken back the House, we are fighting 1 degree at a time to reverse some of the things that they had put in place. So it's every day. We've got work to do. I mean, I sit on Armed Services Committee, which I love, and it's so important to be that voice. I could spend, next time I come, we can talk about just the state of the world and what's going on with China and Asia. But it's a scary world out there. So we have to do better for our servicemen and women. I sit on the Veteran Affairs Committee, Health Subcommittee there. So again, a lot of room for improvement with how we're providing health care, especially. I'm a geriatric nurse practitioner, so most of our veterans do fall into that older adult category, or a lot of them do. And so we have to do better. We can do. We're looking at just VA hospitals throughout the country and how they're implementing their electronic charting. their appointment system, a lot of room for improvement. I also sit on natural resources, which for me is a great fit for the district. It allows us to be mindful of things like the waterways and the beaches here. So it's a really great balance for me, and just, again, an honor to be able to represent.
Well, it's an honor to have you here, and we hope that periodically you come back and speak to the constituency through News Talk 790, because we do have a wide variety of listenership that just, I think they're really cued into the issues. And we thank you so much. Be safe. Relax.
Thanks for having me.